at 6 p.m. in Route 2. We can go around the room very quickly and tell who we are. Who would please? Mr. Ely, we'll start with you.
No, I'm Land Ely. I'm here with Land Solutions Company to hear the Nearwater Place Final Master Development Plan.
I'm Denise Winkley with Grace Place Ministry here for our rezoning.
Andy Gilling,
Jim Waters, Steve Brown.
Jack Bradley,
Jonathan Hayes,
Keith Free,
Sarah Loft.
Jason Gallup,
Jesse Eckenroth,
Jamie Clary.
Thank you all. We have an agenda. I have an addition to the agenda. This is an ordinance that I have thought about for quite a while since we did redistricting. Before talking about and discuss somewhat before, and I can explain when we get to it on the agenda. So I would like to add it to our agenda.
okay, I'll second that.
Okay. Thank you. That is added to the agenda. I would also like to move item E to the very first item, because Lynn's daughter is dancing at Sandusbury Park.
Very soon.
I want him to be there.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. So,
I'll second
is
that.
that all good?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. We have resolution 2022-18, a resolution to approve the final development plan for Nearwater Place. Mr. Free,
Yes.
give that to you, sir.
Yeah.
Or Timothy, whoever you want.
Yeah, everything is in order. The developer is here, can answer any questions, as well as the planning staff. This has been through a preliminary development plan some time ago, and then now they've come back through with the final development plan. The planning commission recommended approval of the final development plan. There was a deferment that happened at the previous meeting about the elevations, but Mr. Ely with the development made those corrections to the satisfaction of the planning staff and the planning commission. So everything is in order, and this is in significant compliance with the preliminary development.
I don't have any questions.
Move to accept.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Ely?
Thank you.
Go get hot.
All right.
So,
Worth that dollar.
Take
A lot of water.
Remember the Coke?
And next we have ordinance 2022-12, an ordinance rezoning 4.47 acres located at 126 New Shackle Island Road, on the east side of New Shackle Island Road, and on the north side of Innovation Way, and approving the Grace Place and New Shackle Comprehensive Development Plan to govern the development of said property.
So move. I'll second.
And the motion second is on the floor for discussion. Shoot.
I had the pleasure and the opportunity to meet the applicants several weeks ago. And I have to admit, I came away there from that meeting really impressed with what they had to offer. Was you there?
It was me.
Okay, again, I was there, but I come away really impressed with their proposal. And then watching the planning meeting later with those people that spoke, it really did me good, I tell you. And saying all this, Keith, would you look at your your motion and vote on page 8? It was explained to me last last sentence, and contention.
Yes.
Right there. I need to know if is this going to affect the whole program if it doesn't go through? Will we go back to the original apartment complex?
No, right now, where we're at right now, as far as what the planning commission and the representative from Grace Place is here and can address it as well. So what happened is the Grace Place offered, because there was concern about, well, what if this gets approved, but it doesn't go through, before Grace Place takes ownership of it, and then we've rezoned the property multifamily. And so I think Grace Place understood that. And so what they offered and what that, all that contingency is saying, hey, this final development plan and the zoning won't actually lock in until Grace Place has ownership of the property. So when they receive the title to the property, and then we have that, and all of the final development plan is corrected, then at that time, the zoning will kick in. Now, after that, there's nothing at this point, on how the property is going to be utilized in the future. The assumption is, and the representation for Grace Place is that it'll be Grace Place. That'll be doing that. So all that was a way that, because the applicant offered to do it, I don't know that it's something we would want to place on the applicant if it wasn't something they were agreeable to, but in this case, that they are. And I don't know if Dee wants to
Yeah, go ahead,
address that as well.
share with us, from your standpoint, is there any question at all? Have y'all fulfilled all your obligations?
We have. So far, everything has indicated very positively that we're gonna close as soon as this,
As soon as what?
as soon as we're done with our due diligence.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Keith.
Just thank you for being here, Ms. Dean. We appreciate you. Anybody that did not get to see the last planning commission, I would really encourage you to watch that meeting because of the support that Ms. Van Cleve had at that meeting from everybody, from our court systems to the real estate market, to the school board, to you name it. You hit every single corner that I could see where we really need this service. And I have to call it a ministry because what y'all are doing is making a tremendous difference. So that answered all my questions that night. I attended and I listened, and I'm excited about moving this forward to Beaumont. I feel like I can support it fully.
All in favor?
All right,
Any opposed?
go for it.
Enjoy your evening.
So real quick,
Yes, sir.
okay, so here's what we're sort of in line for, as far as the schedule. You'll be at Beaumont in 2 weeks, and then we have to do a public hearing, we have to advertise for that. And so then for the first reading, for the second reading will be on July 26th.
Yes, sir.
And I think you'll get a pretty good indication, I think, so after the first reading. Is that good with everybody?
Just be doing that due diligence.
Yeah, we are.
And I know you are.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next is, since there's no one else here, I wanted you to have the opportunity to go. The ordinance I passed out.
Good to see you. Sorry, I didn't recognize you.
Mr. Bradley worked on for me. I'd like to preface that with 3 or 4 things for discussion. We've just come through redistricting. Our wards are not what they used to be. Size-wise, people-wise, they pretty well are, but boundary lines are different. We have some movement in automatic seats there. Mr. Hayes would be one of those. He's moved out of 5 into 2 now. For a little bit after movement. So this has been discussed before. And, so after considering redistricting and looking at the wards that changed and giving our COO a lot of credit since he came on board 13 months ago, 14 months ago, 13 months ago, you have taken quite a bit of load off of all of it. Help bridge a gap between our seats and our department heads and our seats, the executive office. And I want to thank you for that. That's also one reason that I bring this before you this evening. It just seems like it makes good sense to me. You'll notice in there that it says that state law has changed now, that any cities that come under an automatic mayor automatic charter can have them anywhere between 2 and 8 aldermen, no more. We in 1986 decided that we wanted 12. And after serving on this board for working on 16 years, 12 sometimes is difficult. Sometimes 1 or 2 is difficult, but over that period of time, it seems like it has been easier to work with committees. We've had smaller groups, but I think that would be the case here too, that there would be less committee meetings, less time spent with 6 aldermen, and that's what I'm proposing, that starting in this coming election. So the elections would be Ward 2, Ward 4, and Ward 6. 2 years from now, it would be a electoral election. It would be Ward 1, Ward 3, and Ward 5. And that would get us in a pace where we have 6 aldermen and a mayor representing us and still fall under the automatic charter the way we have in the past. Mr. Bradley, need to add anything to that?
I think you've covered it pretty well. That would mean that no one would be on the ballot this year in Ward 1, Ward 3, or Ward 5, because those would be on the ballot in 2 years. And in the meantime, everybody that's on the board now that has 2 years left in their term would continue to serve. So I think we would have either 9 or 10 members of the board for 2 years, and then after the 2024 election, the mayoral election, it would be 6 from then on. But I think you explained it pretty well.
It's a transition period over basically 2 years. It would take, or 2.5 years in this case, if we voted it. So all I would be asking for you to do would be take it from committee to the board, let the board talk about it, chew on it, see what they think. I know Mr. Bradley has made some phone calls and talked to some other folks. I've had folks tell me for a period of time, there's too many of them. So I don't know if that's true, but anyway, that's my proposal.
May I ask you, how come you're bringing it up now? There's got to be a reason than what you just explained.
Well, I just told you.
No.
Number one.
I heard-
No, I did.
I heard what you said,
Okay.
but why are you bringing it up now?
Why? Because we have an election coming up in November. And we just came through redistricting,
I know-
which
I
we've
understand
got
that.
aldermen that be moving
I've been on
around.
the board back as long as you have. I know we got an election coming
Okay.
up. The redistrict is not what's causing this. I don't think, you may believe it does, but I don't think it does.
Whatever you think,
Yeah.
Mr. Waters.
That's okay. We both wrong. No, I'll oppose this. Off the bat.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Because of the redistricting, it's the perfect time if you're gonna do it.
But you. Will it affect you?
I would still have to run again.
I didn't ask you that, but would it affect you about moving or anything like that? Would
You
it
know,
change you?
I'm having to move to Ward 2. But really, I think the main thing to think about is what's the best for the city. I'm a supporter of small government. I'm also a supporter of doing it at the appropriate time. So this would not reduce your additional 2 years that you would still serve on the board. And I don't think it hurts anybody who's currently on the board, but I suggest we move this forward to Boma and vote on it. The other reason that I find that 12 is just too many is it's like herding cats to get 7 votes sometimes, to get 7 people to agree. And that would change to 4 after the 2 years, and it reduces down to 6. Because we have a chief operating officer now, most of the emails that I get from citizens or calls, oftentimes I send it right to the professional, whether that's to Miss Sarah or Mr. Free or, the police, Commander Rogan. So I'm finding that the job's requirements it's just becoming easier to manage. So it would be 1 per ward instead of 2. So I understand that means you would think that double up on that 1 person, but I feel like at this time, especially because of how smoothly things are running here on a day-to-day basis, that that in conjunction with the redistricting, there's no better time to at least think about this. We don't have to, vote on it now, but when are you ever going to be able to get 12 people to be willing to vote themselves off the board? In other words, because of the redistricting, I think there's a lot of people that may not. They may consider this as a good opportunity to improve the city's government and at the same time step back. So this is the first time I've read it, so I'm.
First time you've read it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I've thought about it a lot of times. I don't know if you remember, Mr. Waters, but when we did the redistricting, there were three of us, the mayor, Alderman Russ, and myself, all voted for 4 wards. And at that point, thinking 8, because that's what most of the other city governments this size do. So I think it's just easier to work with a board that's 7 versus 6 plus the 1 mayor than 13.
I spoke. Yes, sir.
If I could clarify something that you brought up, Mr. Waters, there is, something's gonna have to be done by this board before this coming election. You asking why now? Because the election's in November. It's over a little over 4 months away from now. If we're gonna change anything, it's gotta be now. For one thing, if you do this, if you go to 6 aldermen instead of 12, you take care of any transitional problems that were caused by redistricting. If you don't do anything, we're gonna have to pass an ordinance on what we're gonna do in November about who's gonna be on the ballot and who's not. Otherwise, we're gonna have 13 aldermen for 2 years. Because the way it's set up, every ward's gonna have an alderman election this year. And we're gonna end up with 13. And we talked about that when redistricting was done. And we said, basically, we'll deal with that later. Let's get the wards drawn the way we want them, which was done. The wards are drawn the way we want. So this is a way to avoid deciding, you know, if you don't have an election in Ward 4 or don't have an election, whatever you have 2 elections in Ward 2, all of those issues are taken care of by this. We don't have to agonize over some of those things that we did with redistricting. So I just want you to know that that is a factor. I mean, there's a lot of arguments you can make either way about it, but that's a factor.
That was the biggest factor with me, but I can't explain it like an attorney does. So
Anybody else?
it's not your committee, Mr. Waters.
Not sure.
It certainly is. Anyone else like to speak?
Get the words out of my mouth.
I'm
All in favor?
yes, I am.
Okay, 2 of us, Mr. Waters is a no.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Moving on, ordinance 2022-13, ordinance adopting revisions to the zoning ordinance for the city of Hendersonville. No, those were all read.
I'm not gonna read them tonight, though.
No.
Unless you want me to. I can, if you want.
Quickly, please.
Any questions anybody have? I'd be happy to. I do have one slight issue that I found in regards to vacation rental, some wording that I do need to change, where the wording was basically limiting vacation rental in Old Town commercial and general commercial, which are the only 2 zoning areas that it's allowed, was limited those to the 2nd story of multi-story buildings. But the way it's worded, it wouldn't allow just a single-story building to be vacation rental. So I do need to reword that in order to do that. We don't want to go, we're currently grandfathered in under the state statute with our vacation rental, and we want to be very careful not to overstep. And then that would really be restricting probably too much. Just would need to make that adjustment. Would be the only adjustment that I have right now.
It's an ordinance, so we have 2 weeks and 2 votes. So I'll move that we move on to the vote.
I'll second.
I agree.
All right. None opposed. Ordinance 2022-14, ordinance amending the city's beer regulations to allow the sale of beer at golf entertainment centers. Mr. Edwards is not here. I'm going to ask Mr. Bradley to talk to us about.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Gilly to
Okay, Mr.
explain what this operation is, this golf operation. He's seen it before. It's some sort of virtual golf, but he volunteered to explain it to the committee, and then I'll tell what the beer board said about it.
So the way I understand it, it's a business in the streets of Indian Lake. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That's correct.
That is operating a golf simulator machine, which means you can go in and basically you got a large screen as big as the wall and a net, and you can act like you're playing at Pebble Beach or any course in the world. So you'll have guys come there and compete against each other or practice or do whatever you want. It's I would call it glorified putt-putt. You're not playing real golf, you're playing into a video screen. And that's basically what it is.
Where's it gonna be located?
I believe it's in the streets of Indian Lake. That's the most I know about it.
That's what the fellow that came before the beer board said. He had a space located at the streets. I'm not sure which building. it
It's already
is.
got a building?
He said he had a location for it. He's been pretty persistent with the beer board for several weeks, if not months, to try to get something passed. And so this ordinance has gone before the beer board, and they have agreed to it, subject to, of course, the approval of the board. We've had several changes in the beer laws over the years. We opened it up for the half batch brewery so they could sell on site. We've done other things. I remember we did it where caterers could sell beer, and we had special events permits. And when I first brought up the ordinance, I tried to do it in a way that was just so narrow that it would only apply to this golf simulator thing. But then the beer board said, well, what if somebody wants to come and have a miniature golf course and they want to be able to sell beer? They said then this would come within that if you worded it a little different. So that's where it has to be something relating to golfing operations. Of course, you're still subject to all the same rules. You got to be 21 to buy beer. It's not like it's going to open it up for children to buy beer. And what I have suggested and what he has agreed to do, it's my understanding that the owner is willing to come to the board of mayor and alderman meeting on first reading and explain the whole process. He's got a pretty complicated system to check IDs on getting beer. There's some sort of it involves driver's license and scanning and just a lot of things that I think that you'd be impressed with the extent he's going to make sure minors don't get beer. And I'm almost positive that he told the beer board that there would be a 2 beer maximum for anybody that was even there. So the bulk of his sales would not be beer at all. The bulk of his sales would be the use of the simulator. And we put in there the same requirement we have for a lot of other businesses, that 70% of the 60% of the sales cannot be alcohol. 60%, he can't do more than 40% of his gross receipts being
He
alcohol.
has the same obligations as 60/40.
Yeah, like the restaurants.
He's got to sell 60% food,
Well, no, there's no food, 60% golf or entertainment, the games that they're playing.
other than beer.
Yeah, and then no more than 40% beer. We just did that to be consistent. Unfortunately, the state legislature has made it now where you can get a bar, you get an ABC permit without any food sales. You just pay a little more for your permit. So we're kind of hanging on with our 40-60 rule, trying to keep it as long as we can to at least require that it can't just be a place that sells beer only, that they've got to have another operation with it.
Now, is he still under the same restriction as chapter 8?
All the things.
They
that are-
haven't changed at all.
No, all this does is, like we allow beer sales at the city golf course, we allow beer sales at Half Batch Brewery, we allow beer sales at bowling alleys. All this does is this creates a new category that can sell beer for on-premise consumption. It doesn't change, the regulations are all still the same as they are.
The age 21.
All of that's the same. The only thing that changes is this establishment, because it's not a restaurant, had to have a special exception if they were going to be able to get a beer permit. And Mr. Edwards is the sponsor of this, and he is on vacation now and asked me to explain it to you. So I talked to Mr. Gillian, he said he'd help me.
Well, I wish he was here. That's something new. That's a new venture.
It is, and of course, it would have to have 2 readings before the board of mayor and alderman. And I have suggested, and the fellows agreed, he'll come explain it to the board why he thinks he needs to have a beer permit here.
Yeah.
And then you can decide if you want to support it or not. This is just
And the beer board did their due diligence. He came once.
Yeah,
They
they
sent
did.
him away because he just didn't have a very good plan. He came back the second time and
Made a presentation.
Made a very strong
Yeah, the
presentation.
airport, yeah.
I wonder if we could move this forward to Boma, but with just either neutral or not a recommendation.
Two votes in
I
this committee to
sense
do
some
this.
concern from,
I'll be honest with you. Why beer? That's just me. I don't care what you think about me personally. But when you gotta have beer to run a business, I don't understand it.
it bothers me a little bit that it doesn't include food.
It does not include
It's really
food.
just a bar with electronic golf.
Yeah,
And
I agree with what you
I wish
just,
Mr.
what
Edwards
you just
would.
made.
But I don't want to deny him the opportunity to be voted for in front of the board.
He come before the board.
Tell you what we can do, we can table this until our July meeting. We have a July meeting.
Not unless there's going to be, well, unless the BOMA meeting's canceled, so it's up to, we would have one unless it's canceled or rescheduled.
Would you all be willing to come early to the BOMA meeting for 15, 20 minutes? to talk?
Sure, yes, sir.
Okay, let's put it on the table and we'll have a special call meeting for BOMA on the 24th, 6th,
6th.
I don't know.
Yeah.
whatever that second meeting in July. 26th.
26.
No, we'll just table it. It's out there. I'll just table it.
What time, 6 o'clock? Or
I
6:30?
think we need to go, what other meetings should we have that night?
We have Public Works and Finance.
Public Works will start long before that.
Yeah,
Finance probably really hasn't got it. Yeah, we can do ours. I think we can go 6:30. We'll talk about this one agenda.
And then it could still go on that very BOMA meeting.
If we
After
decide
we
to put
met
it in early.
So it's not going, to just for staff's knowledge, you do not want this on the board man alderman agenda unless you add it after the special general committee meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Because I know Mr. Eckert and I had that question.
Well, he's smiling. I'm not sure why.
We can put it on the agenda and y'all, we can put it on the BOMA agenda and y'all could of course vote on it when
Yeah.
we get there.
You can withdraw it, that's true.
Yeah.
You
I
can
like
recommend
that.
withdrawal.
I feel better about putting on the agenda and giving everybody an alert about it than surprising everybody.
Let's do that. I agree.
And that way we can ask the man to come and make his presentation. It'll actually be on the agenda. Yes, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
26.
What are you trying to say?
We were just talking about maybe putting it on BOMA. And then it's got to go on 2 readings on BOMA anyway, right? Ms. Bradley, it's an ordinance, right? Be 2 readings
Yes.
anyway.
Certainly that's like we're ready to make a decision. Might
June
list some
28th.
thumbs down. So just want to give this
Yeah.
person an opportunity and the rest an opportunity and we move it out.
So June the 20, the general committee will not have met by June the 28th though, unless y'all want to meet June the 28th.
We're thinking about if it would help to meet 15 minutes before.
Hey, June
So
the
it's
14th.
June-
What is
yeah.
June the 28th.
Yeah, it would be June the 28th.
Yeah.
If we want
That's
to do
what
it
you're
2,
saying.
you want to do it in 2
I lost
weeks,
my
right?
mind about my mind.
So that also means y'all are going to meet the 28th?
Yeah,
Just before BOMA.
we'll meet.
But
And
go ahead and
that's
put it
and that's
on
why
there.
it's a special call because it's
We'll
in
meet
2 weeks
at
from now, right?
6:30, a special call in to address this one issue.
I think there's a nonprofit,
Send me a
we do a
memo.
nonprofit that same way, so it might be conflict. We have a nonprofit meeting that we're gonna vote on the,
I think we're
are
done.
we wrap, are we wrap?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay,
Yeah,
We've done it.
We'll vote on the minutes
yes,
next year.
okay.
But because I know how difficult and how much work you all put into doing all these binders, I agree with the mayor. Can we go ahead and put it on and we'll withdraw it if there's a problem on the 28th before that meeting? We'll just withdraw it and
I can do that.
withdraw it, but
We could do a special call and have it on BOMA as well. So we can meet in here at 6:30.
I think
It
that's
can
what
be-
we're talking
it can
about.
be on the
Special
BOMA
call in,
agenda
have
as
it on
well.
BOMA.
If we want to pull it from BOMA, we
whatever's
can.
easiest for
We
your
would
staff.
have to vote on the 2-week rule anyway, so just, we can put it on both.
Okay.
That way, all the men will be here. All in favor of that?
Yes, sir.
Aye. Ordinance 2022-15, an ordinance amending ordinance 2021-22 as amended to reflect an adjustment of the city's 2022 fiscal year budget. So move.
Okay.
It's got to do with paving, I believe. Isn't it?
One more.
Stormwater.
Yes,
One of those.
yes, we had a few pipes need to be replaced before we started our fiscal year 23 paving list. And so we wanted to get a jump start on those. And so this adjustment to the budgeting reflects that. And it is from the stormwater utility, so it doesn't affect.
We're gonna get paid.
I
I don't know.
think I did mention the pipes that needed to be replaced before paving.
That's right. You did it. Any questions, objections?
Thank you for being so proactive, Ms. Locke, on the paving that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. And this too, grateful, very grateful. Thank you. Yes, I vote
All in
yes.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Now we have 2022-30, a resolution formally naming the property known as the Beatty Farm Heritage Park. I will so move.
Second.
Basically, what that boils down to is the committee, the naming committee met. The Friends of Indian Lake have met, did surveys, got those in, had several more meetings. Voted to name this Heritage Park. Our naming committee within City Hall has met and agreed to that. So it has to be moved to Beaumont and voted on. Beatty Farm will be called Heritage Park, I guess, here in about a month or so. If this is moved to Beaumont.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 2022-31, a resolution establishing a public information officer position and amending the job classification list of pay tables. Move.
Second.
Mr. Cleary, you are on here.
I appreciate that. This is something that's been talked about for several years. And we've seen it more with the need to be more communicative when it comes to drainage, when it comes to paving, when it comes to trash, especially holidays as well. But also just keeping up on our social media, and keeping our website up to date. And we will be able to keep that person busy without a problem.
I agree.
Would you accept a co-sponsor?
Sure.
Yeah, add it as co-sponsor.
Two.
Me as well.
Only two, not more.
Only two.
Find out.
Whole general committee, it seems like.
Okay.
Well, I know it's gonna happen, so
Yeah.
put my name's on it.
Had to go with it. So my name's on there.
We'll put all three of you on there, and anybody else wants to come on.
Sure.
I'm good.
Those two.
I don't have enough room on my sheet of paper. right here.
Leave me off.
I'll send out an email.
Just put ER.
I'll solicit via email.
Yeah, I think that's something we've all talked about and wanted for quite a while now, and it definitely benefit communications with citizenry, and they would appreciate it probably more than I would, so.
And by the way, the impact of the budget, because we had one position that we separated into two, so the impact for those two positions is roughly about $30,000. Is that a good guess? Above what we were paying for the one position before. If we took the PIO and the planner, economic development.
Oh, yeah, it's not much. The difference, probably the delta is probably 30.
So we get two.
This position reports to which one of you three?
Oh, okay.
Mr. Gallo.
Why did you point at him so fast?
It was this the position you were talking about when you first came in and we were just?
No, sir, that was
Okay,
something else.
okay, that's something else.
Yep.
That's IT.
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Resolution 2022-32, resolution repealing resolution 2017-43 with respect to funds reserved for land acquisition. I will put that on the floor.
I'd like to be added as a sponsor as well.
To this.
Yes.
Got to get a second to get it on the floor.
I'll second.
Okay.
Sorry.
What this is, and I will call on Jesse and Mr. Billy to explain this any, and explain sometimes to us. It's good to have an attorney here. It's better, but we're doing we started doing a 1% set aside. I think 4 years ago is when we originally voted on it. John, if I'm wrong, I believe it's 3 or 4 years ago. Of 1% of our budget for land preservation and to purchase land or pay for that. might be that they would like to have for parks or for whatever needs. I think we set that money aside for a couple of years, and for some reason it didn't get set aside last year. Don't know why, it's in the system, so. Anyway, I was for that. I still believe that's a good thing to do. I still believe the city needs to be cautious and look at what land's being sold around. And, there's not a lot more unless you move north Gallup Road up in Ward 6 and or Ward 3, some Ward 5. So, but at this time, though, we have some enhancements that can be used in our park system for those folks that live here now within our park system. Most of this money that we had talked about would probably ended up at parks, could end up for our or something. After discussion, it was suggested that we take this money and then we use it basically for lighting for flag football and pickleball. Pickleball could be pulled out of budget tonight. I don't want that. We haven't passed the budget yet, so whatever we do with this money could be something different or could revert back to that. What I'm proposing is after discussion with Mr. Gilly and Mr. Eckenroth, we pull that money and we use it within our parks for lights. Did I get it?
How much money is it? 193, 487.
Yeah, it's just shy of 200,000.
Okay.
So the resolution, it repeals 2017-43, which was the original resolution. And, with respect to the budget, the resolution says that the resolution basically recommends a 1% set aside. So we're not required to do 1% set aside. And it was interpreted that the payment to the Beatty Farm was satisfying the intent of the resolution, since it was a recommendation anyway, since we're paying the debt for the land acquisition. So it wasn't included in last year's budget. It's not included in this year's budget. We are acquiring the land. We're just paying it through the debt. So this resolution would basically repeal that. We have some funds that are sitting there. And when we're kind of talking about the size of a parcel that you need to build a park on, probably multi-million-dollar parcel. So the $190,000 is, a fraction of what you need. But we have some needs currently right now that we're not funding in our budget. So this resolution would basically repeal that resolution, free up that money. If it's dedicated to a certain place, then that, we do a budget ordinance to add to whatever department or wherever that money is going to go. But this basically would repeal it and free up that money. That's in there.
Question. Sure. So in 5 years, it was adopted in 2017. It's got 193,487, is that right? 5 years. How much do we owe on Beatty Farm?
Probably over $1 million, $2 million. I don't have it. How much was that purchase for?
Connect.
A little over a couple million.
And we paid. I'm thinking the first year that we did this, the money went to.
The money has gone towards the Beatty Farm payments each year that there was money set aside, but the money, the 1% was more than the payment. That's how you end up with excess.
Yeah.
1% of 58 million. The payment on the Beatty Farm, I believe, is around $450,000 a year, increasing each year. So I don't know how much is left. I think we started paying on that in 2018.
Yeah, I think
So-
too, one of the reasons that it wasn't included in last year's budget is because the resolution says I believe it says operating budget. And so we separated the budget to operating and non-operating budget. So the non-operating budget or the operating budget would be smaller than previous year's budgets. So 1% of that, yeah, the city's annual operating budget. So last year, when we came in and we basically divided up into operating and non-operating, well, your operating budget got smaller because it didn't include the non-operating. So that 1% of the previous year, that number is now reduced. So the surplus that would have been there in previous years isn't going to be there now. So we're going to continue to pay the debt, but the surplus isn't there because our operating budget has now been parsed out and it's smaller when you're looking at that as a percentage of the payment. And then we also consider the property that we currently have. So we have acres and acres and acres of property currently that we don't have developed. So it's just kind of an idea to do some improvements now. We have a lot of land still to develop that we have in our wheelhouse.
What about the berry farm, the berry, what's it called out there on
Bradford Berry?
Bradford Berry? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we use it for that?
No, that was actually gifted to us from the developer. So, there's going to be some costs for whatever we do out there, but we did not pay for that property. Is that correct? Was that gifted to us?
Yeah, it will be. That, I think, wasn't it either that, the land plus $100,000 or $200,000 with it? It was 200,000.
100.
It was 100,000, that's right.
So yeah, we have that piece, we have the Durham Farms. So we have the rugby fields, plus there's a large section next to
That's the
Durham
next
Farms.
question. You said Durham Farms adjacent to the rugby field. What are you saying? What do you mean?
So there's also a very large parcel of land adjacent to the rugby field. That's why I put adjacent, because probably a lot of folks don't know that there's a big, I think it's 40 acres adjacent to the rugby field. So we have the rugby field, plus there's a 40-acre parcel
Go
adjacent.
down further.
Mhm.
On that same
And
property.
there's a creek, so we haven't developed a bridge across the creek, but there's, rather sizable piece of land over there that we could develop. And obviously now we have Beatty Farm as well.
Any other option besides the parks? And I have nothing against the park. Other apartments that could use money?
Sure, every department could use some money. I think this resolution, though, is step one is saying, hey, we're gonna repeal it, we'll free up the money. Whatever the money is used for would come in the form of a budget ordinance that Robert would put to the budget.
It's not city Concord, perhaps just part of the discussion we had, that since most of our land is park developed or could be park developed, that we could take this 197 and help enhance some of the park stuff that we have now. You could use it for a mile and a quarter road or whatever. 197.
But we'll stop saving 1% each year of our total budget.
That'll go away.
Yeah,
That'll go away.
Yeah, we didn't do it last year. It's not in this year's budget because it's 1% of the prior year's operating budget. And the Beatty Farm debt payment more than satisfies that amount. And it's not a requirement anyway, it's a recommendation. So,
So this is all of 197. That's it.
yes, sir.
That's all that's left.
Be no more.
Alderman Rhodes.
Yeah, the reason I support this is when we did the park study that Kelly Horn, it showed, if you looked at the analysis, it showed that we had more land than the other groups that they looked at, the other parks. So the Durham Farms, I feel we've got plenty of land for the future. We've also got some land at Forest Park. They donated some land for the city's use. And the one use that I think that this is needed is at Volunteer Park. The Volunteer Park field only has lights on half of it. So it can't be used at night. It's totally useless at night. So I think staff has looked at what that would cost. But I understand this is not, Mr. Chairman, a discussion of how to spend it. It's just to free up the money. And I'm fully in support of that because there are some needs in the parks that I think we can take care of.
When you start talking about $197,000, everybody's ears perked up and everybody wants their piece. Mr. Gilly, just like everybody else, his ears perked up, he wants his piece, but not all.
I don't have a little bit of it with you.
I don't think we're eligible.
Can't do it.
Okay, any more questions?
No question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Some of